y'all. We are back for episode 8, Summer House Martha's Vineyard. We are one episode out from the finale. This episode pissed me off, especially towards the end, but we'll get to that. But if you are new here, as always, thumbs up the video, drop a comment down below, subscribe. Like I said, if you are new, subscribe. If you are not new, you already know the drill. Thumbs up the video, drop a comment, and let's go, because we got a lot to talk about. I'm pretty sure y'all should have a lot of comments, so let's talk about it. All right, so we get Bria and Simon arguing pretty much the continuation of last week's little spat about him with that flamingo shit. And she's pretty much telling him, like, pack it up, like, pack your shit up, it's time to go. She's continually stating that he's not respecting her, yada, yada, yada. And she ends up charging out of the room. Everybody else is still downstairs having a good time. Simon eventually comes down and starts talking to Alex and pretty much telling him that they were pretty much arguing over that flamingo shit. Jasmine goes upstairs to check on Summer because, as we all know, Summer went upstairs because she's sober. She's not drunk. She felt socially awkward not being drunk, so she went upstairs. But Jasmine's up there checking on her. One of Jordan's friends went up there to check on her as well. But Summer wants to heal her friendships in a sober way because she felt like she was feeling guilty about not being there for her grandma. For her surgery. She's trying to repair the relationship with her mom. So she got a lot of stuff that she wants to figure out, and she feels like being sober is the best way to do it, which is true. Like, it is. But we get Amir and Bria drunk, sitting there trying to have a conversation about Simon. She's crying, saying that it makes her sad because her relationship's falling apart. Amir's sitting there talking about how him and Natalie argue all the time about missing each other. It's like, it's two stupid relationships, two stupid arguments, two immature. I would say 4. I was going to say 2 immature people, but it's actually 4 people involved, but 2 immature couples. So these 2 talking to each other about stuff is just pointless, essentially. But the whole conversation was pointless, too, because he comes down there, Simon comes down there, and they're pretty much still like rehashing everything, being stupid and just drunk. So at this point, they're literally having a conversation that does not need to be had when you're under the influence, because nobody's really talking about anything of substance. But the party guests, they start filing out later on as it gets later and later into the night. And of course, everybody else starts trickling off the bed. But Bria gets upstairs and she gets on the phone with her mom saying that she's done with Simon and telling her that she's packing his shit. She got his credit card information, so she's going to book him a flight out of there. And her mom tells her that's a little extreme, like, you're doing too much right now. And then she says, okay, fine, well, I'll let him stay here, but the relationship is done. We know Bria is full of shit. But everybody else ends up heading off to bed. The next morning, everybody starts waking up. Noelle gets up to go check on Shanice, who's laying in the boys' room, which is Nick's bedroom, his particular bed that she's laying in, which is why it's crazy how all this unfolds, because he's letting her stay in his bed while he's in the other room with Tasia. We'll get to it. We will get to it. But Noelle and Shanice are talking about how Amir's not able to hold his liquor. Amir then comes downstairs to join Preston, Donald, and Alex. And they're pretty much talking about the same thing. Like, he can't hold his liquor. He was drunk. They start showing flashbacks of him just taking shots after shots after shots every single part of the night. They're laughing about how drunk he got. But upstairs, Summer is checking in with her grandma, who is having the surgery today in this moment. She's telling her to call her back whenever she finishes or whatever. So she's just trying to keep up and make sure that her grandma's surgery goes well. But Noelle, Bria, Shanice, and Natalie, they're outside in this hammock. And this is where everything that comes to a head at the end starts. So they're sitting there talking about how pissed off Bria was about Simon and the flamingo shit. And she says, like, when she goes to his event, she respects him and respects his wishes. And she feels like because he turned into Lucifer, because he found out he was only going to be there for 3 days, she feels like he started acting a fool because of that. But she says she doesn't want to bring him back next summer. I hope you don't come back next summer to do the season, if there is a season 3. Hopefully there is. But I hope she don't come. Bria is irritating, and I really don't like her. But we'll keep moving. But Noelle then asks, like, are you still going to be in a relationship with him? AKA, like, you talking about you don't want to bring him back next summer, but are you still going to be in a relationship with him? And she says she wants to figure that out to see if he even wants to have this relationship. And they need to set boundaries. I'm like, have y'all not already set the boundaries? Is that not why you're mad? Because you felt like you set a boundary that he crossed? I'm like, y'all don't need to be together. Like, it's just that simple. But Natalie starts saying that she needs to check in on Amir because he wanted to test his limits with his liquor and how much he could hold it, because obviously he got fucked up. But Shanice starts talking about how she was fucked up and Nick brought her up to his bed. And then they start talking about how Tasia was in the bed waiting for Nick. And Natalie says he was walking around trying to get into something, aka trying to mess around with one of them girls. That's what she's insinuating. And this is where how she acted later on completely counteracts everything that she did in the end, because she tried to act like she was not being messy, but you being messy by saying what you just said. All of these girls is being messy, and all of them, it was a bad look. But Bria says that it's strange how he switches up when she's there. And then she starts talking about how nobody knew that they were even in a relationship last year. Yes, that could be true, but regardless, that's their relationship. Who cares? Like, if Tasia's okay with that, Tasia's okay with that. But why are you so worried about it? But the issue with me is how they start to then turn this into a damaging conversation, which we're going to get into. But Noelle wants to know how it is from Tasia's perspective, not knowing what Nick has done this season, considering how everything went down last season. And Bria said, like, he's out here being touchy-feely. Here they go again with that. Saying even with Jordan and Summer, and he should be honest about that. He already was, because they already addressed the conversation. So why is it being brought back up? They're talking about how he's touchy-feely and then bringing up Jordan and Summer when that conversation has already been spoken upon. The three of them have already had that discussion and they moved on. I haven't seen anything else from that moment that Nick has done anything that's crossed the line. I haven't seen that. But Noelle is saying, like, when taking pictures with a woman, she don't want her man dropping his arm anywhere near a woman's breast or her waist. And they showed a picture of him and Noelle where he was kind of like leaning over Noelle. His arm was over her chest, but it wasn't in a sexual way. The way I saw it, it didn't look sexual to me. Maybe some people would look at it a different way because of what she was wearing, but I didn't feel like it was inappropriate. But Natalie is saying that she can bring it up. I want this scene right here. If you didn't watch it intently, go back and rewatch it. But Natalie says she can bring it up to her, saying that the girls want to talk to her, aka Tasia, about what's been going on in the house. And Noelle says that I don't want to speak on it because I didn't see it. But nobody stopped Natalie. Nobody told Natalie don't do it. Natalie has no business bringing this up anyways because you weren't there. But nobody stopped her. So that's all four of them are in the wrong. Natalie's in the wrong for putting her nose where it don't belong and being messy. And these three are wrong by literally allowing some speculation that's not even based off of anything that is literally being happening. They're speculating on something that's not even occurring or having anything to do with them three. So I just don't like it. But the next scene, we get Natalie going upstairs with Amir filling him in on the conversation that they were having. But she lets him know that the girls feel like Tasia should know how he behaves when she's not there. So Alex randomly comes out of their bathroom as they're having this conversation, which I thought was just random, but they didn't even address it. But Natalie ends up saying that she told them that she would stay to Tasia. So that's what we know is coming later on. But she says if her man was behaving that way, she would not be with him. Yeah, we know. We know. But Amir ends up saying, like, well, he knows that she's going to go open her mouth and start an issue. And he's hoping that it's not going to start an issue with him and Nick, which if you don't want it to start an issue with you and Nick, then tell her to keep her mouth shut. She wasn't there. But Amir's not going to do that because Amir lets Natalie run his life. But Nick and Tasia, they're not going bike riding because the rest of the crew is going bike riding. They're not going bike riding because she didn't bring clothes to ride the bike. And of course, Nick doesn't want to go do it and leave her by herself. So they're staying together. But everybody else starts filing out to go to the bike ride. Simon is walking around looking lost. He's not going. But Alex, Jordan, Jasmine, Summer, and Noelle, they're in a car and they're talking about how he's looking lost and talking about him farting last night too, whenever him and Bria were having a little discussion. But Shanice asked if they're riding on the bikes in the clothing that they're wearing. And she's talking about Nick and Tasia because they're dressed to go to some dinner, essentially. That's what they look like. And she's calling them weird. I'm like, okay, what is your issue with them two as a couple? To me, I feel like Shanice probably got some type of like lingering, crushing type feelings for Nick. The way she was acting this episode, I don't know. The way she was talking about them as a couple was weird because it's like, what does that have to do with you? What does that have to do with you? Like her calling him a weird couple, her saying later on that he should be single. Why? You want him to be single? So you can get with him? Is that what that is? That's what I was catching from. But y'all let me know what y'all thought. But Bria and Simon, they're on the top deck. This conversation was pretty telling. But Simon starts talking about how sad he is about her being so quick to want to end their relationship, and she loves to trigger him. And Bria starts saying, "Cut the shit." She says the event was sentimental to Nick, and Simon didn't take it seriously, which I can see where she's coming from, but I feel like Bria likes to stretch everything. But she says it was disrespectful because he was trying to honor his line brother who passed away, obviously. And she says, like, if she would have acted that way at an event, he would have cussed her out. And Simon says, but you did act bad at an event that I did have. And she's sitting there looking dumbfounded. And he said it took her over 5 minutes to leave it took her up to 5 minutes to just say, I don't fuck with these people at this event that you have. And I'm leaving and I'm going to go sit in the car. She then starts stating that he's putting her in dangerous situations. When she said it, I'm like, what are you talking about? She said that, and he looked confused too when she said that. She said her being a black woman in Germany around a bunch of racist people, and he's protecting them, saying that she's the problem, but he's blind to the racism because he's white. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, so you've known that he's had an issue when it comes to you as a black woman being around a bunch of white people that are ignorant and racist, and you're still with him. And you said you wanted to marry him a couple episodes ago. But you have all these issues. You know that he's blind to racism. He likes to make excuses for people that are being racist to you. And you still want to be with him. Bria, shut up. Just don't even talk. Don't even talk no more. Like, because you still with him. You with a man that is blind to racism. And she continues to go over and say more things and more examples of what's happened in the past. She starts saying how he has extended cousins that say shit about her, like little slick shit about her, and him wanting to be with black women and saying like he never sees anything, or at least he says that he never sees anything, and he goes out of his way to kind of devalue her experience when it comes to the racism around him and her in those Germany-esque places where it's a bunch of white people. And she says that he turns a blind eye to it. So I'm like, okay, so you got all this stuff that you've been tallying and you haven't brought this to his attention until just now, but you're still with him. That should have been a deal breaker. Well, anybody else, it would have been a deal breaker. But I'm like, what? But she ends up saying that she was disrespected. She blows up because his cousin had said that he didn't know he was into indigenous women, talking about Bria. And he said, you blow up and you're doing it right now. And she's like, yeah, I'm doing it right now because you're not taking responsibility for letting other people disrespect me. And he claims that he's always thinking about her and he would never put her in a bad situation intentionally. And she says she's open to growing and being with him. And I'm like, but you said all of that and you still want to get them off my TV. Get them off my TV. That's all I got to say. But the rest of the crew, they end up getting to bike riding. Nick and Tasia let them know that they're going to be going to brunch. They're not riding the bike. So they go head off by themselves to the restaurant that they're going to be having brunch at. And they're driving around, a little awkward moment. Nick says something about like, why don't you start an Arrington family plan? I guess they're talking about like phone plans. And he's saying, get us new phones. And she's like, well, my last name is Burrows, right? And to me, I feel like she was hinting at him like, you need to go ahead and take that next step and like, give me your last name. Because you want me to do all that, but my last name is still Burrows. Nick was sitting there looking at her and just looking at her like, and she looking at him like, are you going to make a move? But production ends up asking him too, like, y'all been together for 2 years. Like, when are you going to propose? And he goes on this long tangent of reasonings as to why he hasn't done it yet. But he says eventually that's what his end goal is. But back at the house, the Uber arrives for Donald, Simon, Bria. They all end up, and Preston too. They all end up going to the restaurant to go have brunch. But Jordan and Jasmine, they're kind of bonding while riding bikes. Jordan states that like without Silas there, she feels like she's been able to kind of like rekindle with Jasmine all these moments that she used to have with Jasmine. She's starting to feel them come back again. But the crew, they all arrive to the restaurant. They finish the bike ride and stuff. Amir is still hungover. Natalie then ends up mouthing to Tasia while they're sitting there eating that they need to talk. So she then gets up and walks over to her. Nick is like right across from Tasia. He's seeing all this. And Natalie gets over there and starts petting on Tasia's hair. I don't know if that irritated y'all, but it irritated me. Especially considering how Natalie is very microaggressive and the way she acts when it comes to being around these black women. It's pretty odd to watch. But she starts petting her hair and Nick is sitting there watching it. And she says, I want to keep you in the loop. I want to talk to you about it. I want to keep you in the loop before anything comes to your attention. And I'm like, how close are they? Because they keep saying how they're friends and whatever, but I'm like, they don't seem that close to where she would even need to bring this to her attention. But in my opinion, Natalie's just being messy. But Tasia says she's about to leave. It's fine. Like, I'm about to go. I don't need to talk about nothing. That's pretty much what she said. And I feel like she knows they're either trying to meddle in her relationship or at least try to make something bigger than what it is. So she kind of pretty much tells her, like, I don't care. Like, it is what it is. She didn't say I don't care, but that's the energy she gave her. But Natalie ends up walking away and she starts tapping on Nick, like trying to nicely tap on him, like she wasn't trying to be messy. I'm like, send her back home too. Send Amir with her. But Nick says that he'll deal with it later on, talking to Tasia. He said, like, whatever it is, I'll deal with it later on. So Donald ends up saying his goodbyes. Tasia starts doing hers as well because Nick is going to take them to the airport. So he starts walking away with Tasia, asking if she's okay. And she says, no, I just want to go. So at this point, Tasia's not happy. Nick is not happy about it either. But Nick then texts Natalie saying, like, Tasia did not like what you just did. Like, what is going on? Like, what are you trying to talk to her about? Natalie then texts back saying that apparently you're touchy. And he said, really? So who's saying it? And she says, Bria, Noelle, and Shanice. That right there is, I know what pissed him off, because if it was Jordan and Summer, I feel like he probably wouldn't have been as upset. He probably would have still been upset, but he wouldn't have been as upset because they've kind of already addressed that. These three saying it with there not being any proof of him being touchy with them, I see exactly why he's pissed. And like, he's on national TV and you're saying this stuff on national TV, that's damaging to him. Essentially, y'all making him out to be a predator on national TV, and that could fuck up his career. That could fuck up anything else that he's trying to do in life. Like, if they get brand deals and stuff, people might not want to partner with him because of these allegations that are not true. Like, it's been proven that it's false. But she's down inside of the restaurant. Natalie's inside of the restaurant with Amir, and she's still texting him. And I was sitting there laughing because I'm like, the way she's sitting there texting Nick in front of Amir, regardless, I mean, it's Nick. But if he would have been texting Jordan like that or texting Summer like that, she would have had an issue. Amir didn't have no issue. Obviously, because it was innocent, nothing was going on. But still, like, if it was innocent with Amir, she would have blown it up and made it a big issue. But she's still texting saying that the girls were talking about him and Tasia, and she wanted to inform Tasia, which is why she was trying to have that conversation. But Amir is sitting there trying to tell her, like, make sure that Nick knows that your intentions were not malicious, which I know they were. But Amir doesn't want it to put a wedge in their friendship, him and Nick's. But back at the table, Noelle is asking Alex, like, if he wished he brought somebody to the couple's weekend or whatever. And he said, like, it would have been nice. And Noelle said, like, she longs for these type of vacations where she has a significant other. But Alex also then says, like, that's why he feels proud of Nick, because of where he and Tasia were last year and seeing where they are now. Like, he's trying to bring light to a situation that they're trying to rain on. But Jasmine said, like, she would have liked to have gotten to know Tasia a little bit more. She didn't really know too much about Tasia. She didn't really know too much about them as a couple. And she felt like she wanted to ask her questions about it, but she knew she was about to leave and they're about to eat. And it's just like, why would you now start trying to ask me all these questions to where it looks like you're grilling me? So that's why she didn't ask it, which I don't know. I don't know what I was about to say. I was going to say if Tasia comes back next season, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where that goes if they do have another season and if everybody comes back, which I feel like a lot of these people don't need to come back, but we'll get to that next season if there is one. But Nick and Preston, they're back at the house. The brunch crew's on their way home. Natalie is still texting Nick, trying to clear her name. And Amir's asking, like, is he mad? And she says, like, I don't know. And he's like, is he really mad? And she's like, I don't want to talk about this right now because Bria and Simon were in the car too. So she's trying to keep what she was trying to do under wraps because Bria is also involved in it. But she ended up texting Nick saying that she didn't mean to make him feel uncomfortable. And he texts back, why is there always something? And he put something in caps. You can tell he's pissed. But Nick then is there telling Preston about Natalie trying to tell Tasia about the handsy stuff. And Preston said, oh my goodness, here we go. And Nick says, like, he understands it if it was Summer and Jordan, but they've already discussed it. And Preston agreed, like, yeah, that would make sense because that's something that has already been addressed where all three parties agreed, okay, it could possibly go somewhere, so I will stop it. So they all agreed on that. Well, both of them agreed on that. But Nick says a new conversation coming from the other three girls about him being handsy just don't make sense, and that's what's pissing him off. And Preston said, like, do you know what it's about? Like, what's going on? And he said, no, unless they don't want him to be happy with Tasia, and he just doesn't get it. And I feel like that is where it's coming from. I really do feel like they want to break up their relationship. And it's like, if Tasia's okay with it and she's cool with it, that's up to them. Why does that have anything to do with you? Like, you might not like it, you might not agree with it, but that's not your relationship. But like I said, I don't remember ever seeing him getting handsy with any of those three. So I'm fully in agreement with Nick. But Preston said that he's confused about how it could get to Natalie. And it's frustrating that the house is always talking about the issues that they have with everybody else but that person. I'm like, this is why Preston's my favorite. Preston, he always has logic with his thought process. It's just like, why don't y'all ever address the source? Like, y'all have all these issues with somebody, but never want to bring it to somebody. You always want to tell everybody else, and then it starts a game of telephone, which then starts mess within the house. But the crew ends up getting back home, and Nick and Natalie hug, and he said that he's just pissed off. And Amir says, not with her, right? And he says, no. Simon then comes down and apologizes to Nick about his actions the night before, and Nick was like, I appreciate it. I'm not tripping, but I need to speak to your girlfriend, because apparently she's saying that I touch her inappropriately, and it needs to be addressed. So Nick is ready to go ahead and get on that type of time. And he lets him know, like, he's waiting for Shanice and Bria. Everybody, essentially, except for them two, are in the kitchen. So he's talking to everybody, saying, like, he's waiting for them. And he's telling Noelle directly, apparently he gets touchy with the two of them and you, talking about Noelle, and it needs to be addressed right now. And he's getting heated, and he says, you, ma'am, talking to Noelle. He said, that's wild to me. And he's like, I know you want to be included, but that shit's fucked up. And like I said, I like Noelle, but Noelle was dead ass wrong. She was dead ass wrong in the situation. But she said it wasn't serious to her, and she wasn't making it seem like he was making her uncomfortable. Was she around the conversation? Yes, but was she accusing him of making her feel uncomfortable? No. Nick throws his hands up and is like, I stand corrected, okay? Noelle then goes off to get Bria and Shanice. Shanice is in there taking a shit, trying to act like she don't want to go down there. Shanice, you can tell Shanice don't like confrontation, but she shouldn't be doing what she's been doing. But Noelle is in the confessional saying that they should have kept this shit to the three of them, her, Bria, and Shanice, and not Natalie, because it's not her place to be delivering messages. Yes, you are true, and you are right about that, but you should have known that in the moment, because Natalie clearly is messy. She's looking to be messy. And then she turns around and says that, Nick, if you're not guilty, why are you mad? Why would he not be mad? Y'all are talking about things that could damage his career, damage his life on national TV. Y'all are falsely accusing him of essentially being a predator. And that is not cool. And anybody would be pissed off about that. But Shanice comes downstairs trying to be like all coy with it. You can tell she knew what was going to be addressed. And she's trying to be coy, but Nick addresses it saying, like, you've been saying I get handsy with you. She says, not with me, but we've noticed your eyes wandering. I said, what? His eyes wandering is essentially the same as him getting handsy and touchy. That's what y'all said out y'all's mouth. But I'm like, too, like, you walk around butt ass naked around people, twerking in everybody's face. Who's not gonna at least glance one way, either on accident or purposely, like, what's going on over there? So you take that to then turn it into this situation, to this narrative. Like, that's what's tripping me out. But she then says, like, he got mad that he got caught up because he's got a girlfriend. She said this in her confessionals, because he got a girlfriend and it's his fault and he just needs to be single. This is what I was talking about earlier. You want him to be single. I feel like Shanice wants to be with Nick, and that's why she's so hell-bent on these accusations and wanting to break it up. But he then directly asks her again, what have I done to you? Because apparently eyes are hands now. I'm like, exactly. And Shanice says, you didn't touch me. I'm like, okay, exactly. So he then says, then why not just say this to me? Exactly what Preston was saying earlier. But he then says in his confessionals that he just does not know what the motivation is behind all of this. Noelle is now saying, like, it was never going to get that serious, or at least get serious enough to be taken to Tasia. And she's essentially asking for Shanice and Natalie, who's standing right over there, to co-sign her on stating it was not that serious and it was not supposed to get to Tasia. But y'all was sitting there when Natalie literally said she was going to be the one to bring it up to her. And y'all didn't say nothing. Y'all didn't tell her, no, don't do it. Y'all was okay with her doing it. But Preston then asked, what was the final moment that made y'all want to share it? And Noelle says, what Natalie is essentially said, y'all saying all this shit, why don't y'all tell Tasia? And they asked, okay, so who said that? And Noelle sitting there looking like she didn't want to say Natalie, but she wanted Natalie to say it was her. And of course, Natalie raises her hands because, like, what you gonna do in this point? Like, what are you gonna do in this instance? Because two of the four girls that were, well, actually three of the four girls, but you are one of the three, but two of the other girls that was sitting there with you that heard you say it are there. So if you say you didn't say it, they're gonna know you lying because they're gonna eventually say, no, you did say it. So she raises her hands and said it was her. Preston's face was mine. Preston looked like, wow. So you out here being messy. But Natalie ends up saying like she knew that y'all was going to talk about it, and Tasia is her friend, and she wants her to know that this conversation is being had. So Amir tries to play damage control for his girlfriend, saying they're doing this girl code stuff. They're not trying to attack you. I'm like, shut up. It's damaging. Girl code or not, it's still damaging to Nick. But Jordan says in those moments, she told Nick to fall back, and they've already had them conversations, and they show the flashbacks of her literally doing that. Anytime he might have gotten close or tried to do something, she kind of shut it down. Thank God for Jordan. Like, Jordan, the last couple episodes has been pretty tolerable. But Alex says y'all literally rag on him all the time, and nobody has the decency to address it to Nick. I'm like, exactly. Just rude. And it's just fucked up. Like, y'all supposed to be friends with this dude, but y'all sitting here talking crazy behind his back, but would never bring it to his face. But Bria claims that she never, because she comes down from now finally, she claims she never talks about him. I'm like, you liar. That's all you do is lie. But Nick says, apparently I'm handsy. And Bria said nobody said that you get handsy with her. They run a flashback of her saying, like, if anybody was down to FUCK him, he would be down to do it. And when she said anybody, she's essentially talking about any of them girls in the house. Pretty much said if anybody in this house wanted to go there with him, he would be down to do it. So she then says, I said you get loose, but I never said you get handsy with me. So she's playing words with friends at this point. Preston said, describe the context of what you mean by him getting loose. And she said, everybody gets drunk and everybody gets loose and they might get a little flirty when drinking. And Nick says, so we're now adding new words. So now I'm flirty. She says, yeah, on the boat day you were. They show the flashback of everybody dancing on the boat. Bria's over there twerking. And he just made a comment, said, not throwing ass. That's literally what she was doing. And he then starts encouraging her, like, go ahead and keep doing like what everybody else on the boat was doing. Like, if you're at a party and y'all sitting there dancing and one person is over here getting a little bit of attention, a lot of people are going to encourage it because what are they going to do? Start laughing at you? Like, so that's what he was doing, being a friend. And then they show also them in the car and she's saying that she's redonkulous, talking about she got whatever back there. And he flat out told her, no, you don't. He's not lying. And nothing about that was flirty. And then they ended up showing too a scene where she was talking about wanting to go somewhere. And he was like, he'll take her there. What about that was flirty? He could just be saying, I'm taking you there because we're friends. Like, what's the issue? You can't go out to eat with your friend. But she then tries to deflect on what she's saying to Shanice. Nick says, no, I'm talking to you. Stop trying to put it on everybody else. I'm talking to you. What have I done to you? So she then starts to try and run away like Bria always does and says, you're not going to talk to me like that. Because his voice gets a little bit more firm. I ain't going to say he's raising his voice, but his voice is a lot more firm and he's a lot more direct. Why? Because he's pissed off, rightfully so. So he says, but you can talk behind my back. When she said, like, don't talk to me. He said, but you can talk behind my back. And he said it pretty firm. And then she then gaslights him, telling him to watch his tone. You are playing with his life and his reputation on national TV. And you expect him to be talking to you super calmly? No. And then she continues to sit there and gaslight him, telling him to go off. Like, get it all out, get it out. But everybody else is sitting there quiet as she's doing this. That's what pisses me off with this cast. They allow this girl to get away with a lot of shit. And I feel like a lot of them should have been more in Nick's camp, even though I feel like Alex and Preston and Jordan, to an extent, were a lot more vocal when it came to protecting Nick's reputation on this show. Like, I feel like, because even Jordan at the beginning, like, you can say Jordan and Summer were trying to tarnish his reputation at the beginning when they brought up the handsy stuff initially, but Jordan, like, kind of cut it. She wasn't really trying her hardest to, like, contribute to the mess that they was trying to do. She was trying to, like, let the flame out, essentially. But Alex and Preston were really trying to do Nick a service where he's trying to clear his name, and they're trying to back him up. So I appreciated that. But I just don't like the direction that they're taking this. This was an episode that was kind of rough. But yeah, I can't get my words together. But that was my recap. Y'all let me know what y'all thought down below. I'm pretty sure we might all be in the same accord. Them girls was dead ass wrong. But y'all let me know what y'all thought. Please thumbs up the video. Drop a comment down below. If you're new, subscribe. And I will see y'all next week for the finale. Peace.